dog hair everywhere now.
Alright. Okay.
So you're coming up for an event tomorrow?
Yeah, it's the Shoulder to Shoulder conference, and I think its primary focus is to get a bunch of people that work in like foster care together and do workshops, get some ideas bouncing around. They do some trainings there as well, but I'll be sitting on a panel for youth perspective, basically from a former foster youth.
You were 12?
Let's see. I believe the first time that I went in, I want to say I was 12. Yeah. Sounds like jail. The first time I stayed at Jackson Street, I was 12 years old. I believe 11 or 12. But yeah. My mom and I were just like really struggling to coexist in our house. I'm the oldest of the 3 siblings that lived with my bio mom at the time. And so it was sort of like my role to take some of the, I would say like the initial brunt force of, my mom's issues. And so in a lot of ways, like we struggled the most to get along because I was the one who was interacting with her the most. There was some physical violence going on in my home, and my mother struggled with substance abuse. We didn't really have a lot. We didn't really have, clean clothes a lot of times. And we weren't provided like laundry detergent, toothpaste. A lot of times we didn't really have food. So things just got really bad for me in my home, and eventually it just got to the point where I was looking for other options. So for a while I would stay with friends, a few days here and there, and then I would find one friend that would maybe take me in for like a couple of weeks. But aside from that, I was in the 6th or 7th grade, I think, so I was just attending school, being a normal kid, playing sports, hanging out with friends, kind of just like being a kid as like a 12-year-old kid, but also have this sort of side life of really struggling at home. So the issues, with me and my mom mounted, and it got to a point to where it was really difficult for me to like be comfortable in my own home. And that was what led to my first day at Jackson Street. I don't like specifically remember my first day, but I do remember like the themes of what it was like. The staff, that were there at the time did a good job of trying to make me feel comfortable, but like going to a youth shelter is just a really uncomfortable situation, So I remember kind of feeling like a little bit weird, and you sort of walk in and you don't really know if it's like your house or if you're like how exactly you operate. I remember kind of sitting on the couch and wondering like, am I allowed to touch this stuff, or like what am I allowed to use and stuff, but so at first it was kind of awkward, and getting used to the rules was really hard for me as well, because I had pretty much been doing, whatever I wanted to do for a long time. My mom was really absent. So going from that and then being thrown into this world where they really expected you to like be productive and follow rules and contribute to the household and all of that stuff. At first it was a bit of a shock for me, but I would say over time I started to get used to it, and even I came to like value the structure. At least I knew that, like I knew what was going to happen every day, you know what I mean? Whereas when I was at home, I never really knew. So it's like I hated doing homework, but I knew I had to do homework at this time every single day, and that consistency was kind of good for me. I guess Jackson Street helped me in a lot of ways that I will probably continue to understand better as I grow older. But for me at the time, like what I really felt I needed at the time was just like a place to be and like feel safe. And for me, that was the biggest thing. I know that they provide a lot of services. Jackson Street provides a lot of services, and we got some family rehabilitation services, and they offered me some ride services, and they helped me with a lot of stuff. But what I really felt at the time was just like I'm in a safe place, and that as like a 12-year-old kid, like I don't really care that you're like trying to help my mom deal with her issues. I just need somewhere to like be safe and like feel like I'm comfortable, and not, a place to have food, a place to sleep every night. So for me, it's like without Jackson Street and just having those like basic necessities met, like a kid like me probably falls through the cracks. I had a lot of good memories at Jackson Street. I loved playing Risk with the staff. Dinners at the table was always cool for me. I liked having that. It's kind of weird. It's not really like an actual bio family, but you sort of felt at times because of the way the shelter was set up at the time, that you were part of a family of whoever lived there at the time. So I was there for 2 Christmases at Jackson Street, and there were like a bunch of gifts under the tree one Christmas, and there was nobody there but me. It was just me and one other staff. So I got to pick like half of them and just open them for myself. And they were all basketballs. I literally opened like 5 basketballs or something like that, which I loved basketball at the time, so it worked out for me really well. But some other good memories, just playing basketball with the staff, watching Malibu's Most Wanted and Harry Potter, and staying up and hanging out. And then there were some bad memories too, but I think a lot of those were probably actually self-inflicted. I was a pretty angry kid a lot of times when I was at Jackson Street. So a lot of the bad times that I do remember, and actually I didn't remember them like until I read my case file. I read it like recently, but there were some times in there I was looking at it, I was like, oh, you're a pretty angry kid. So a lot of the stuff that I look back and was like, wow, that wasn't very fun, It was mostly just because I was misbehaving, because I was angry and I didn't want to listen to people and I didn't like rules. One time I did stay at Jackson Street Youth Shelter because I was on probation at the time, and my probation officer and the courts literally said, you can either go to Jackson Street Youth Shelter or you can go to the juvenile detention center. Like, they didn't give me the option to go home. So that was nice. After going to juvie a few times, Jackson Street Youth Shelter was a breeze. Kind of looking back at it, like Jackson Street was actually sort of like the start of my foster care experience, even though I technically was not awarded the state yet. I was living with friends when I wasn't living at Jackson Street, and I really wasn't living at home. So it was like I was bouncing from foster home, basically like pseudo foster homes, I guess. But so yeah, I went into foster care in the 8th grade, and that was actually right after having like a couple of extended stays with friends and then one extended stay in Jackson Street Youth Shelter. The years leading up to my eventual entering back into the foster care system were like slowly but surely just family dynamic crumbling. So it wasn't like all of a sudden they found out that my bio mom wasn't a great parent. It was a long period of time. And then I went into foster care, and obviously foster care comes with its own sets of challenges and difficulties. And I stayed in foster care until I aged out at the age of 21. So that was like 3 years ago now that I aged out. But I was in there for a while. I lived in several different foster homes. I went to 3 different high schools. So yeah, that was kind of a rough time too. Just being a foster youth is a hard experience. But after probably 3 or 4 years in foster care, I started to develop a passion for like advocating for current and former foster youth, and I still am doing a lot of that work today. But currently, I write a blog centered around my experiences in foster care. I do a lot of speaking engagements. I've done a couple of internships that were centered around advocating for foster youth and just young people in general. So that's what I'm doing now, as well as being a student. I'm a full-time student at work, and I do a lot of advocacy stuff as well. But as far as current life, I'm a student, so that consumes the majority of my time, obviously. I work at a fitness center on campus. I write my blog that I mentioned. It's called Foster Fight, so I spend a lot of time not only writing those, editing, but doing things that branch off of that. So I get a lot of opportunities to do, calls or meetings or speaking opportunities through my blog. People will reach out to me and ask me to do stuff for them. So that's pretty much what my current life is consumed with. And I also watch some Netflix, and go to the gym when I can, and yeah, that's kind of my life right now. After I finish my undergrad, I plan on attending a graduate school counseling program. Hopefully, do a master's in either school psychology or clinical mental health psychology. And I'd also like to continue with my blog work, continue advocating for current and former foster youth. But yeah, in the future, I see myself being a therapist. The overall goal is just to be a positive influence on the lives of young people who struggle with extra circumstances that the average person doesn't struggle with. So I really just like to help young people. And a big reason I want to do that is because I had a lot of counselors and therapists that helped me as a young person. And so I want to continue to give back to the young, the next generation, I guess.